Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom. I'm David Mencer, Israeli government spokesman. It's Monday, the 24th of June, day 262 of the October 7th war. A short update from me and then to your questions. I want to draw your attention to the Prime Minister's comments on Israel's Channel 14 last night. The Prime Minister said, quote, "The goal of the war is first and foremost to free all of our hostages. On this goal, I'm not giving up. We have already brought home 136 hostages. We have another 120 to go, and I'm not giving up on anyone, not the living and not on the murdered." Secondly, to eliminate Hamas's military and governmental capabilities. Both are intertwined. We need to do this on the ground, and only in this way will we prevent the chance that Gaza will again become a threat to Israel, end quote. As to the future of the conflict, the Prime Minister said, quote, "The intensive phase of the war against Hamas is about to end. That doesn't mean that the war is going to end, but the war in its intensive phase is going to end in Rafah," end quote. The Prime Minister said that the military will need to keep Hamas subdued as this intensive phase comes to an end. The Prime Minister said, quote, "We will have the opportunity to move some of our forces north, first of all for defensive purposes, and secondly, to bring our residents home as well. If we can, we will do it diplomatically. If we don't, we will do it in another way. But we will bring them all home, all the residents of the north and the residents of the south," end quote. Now to our fallen soldiers. I unfortunately have the unfortunate duty to share the tragic, sad news of IDF casualties. Since the outset of the war, IDF fatalities have unfortunately risen to 665. Sergeant First Class in the Reserves Omer Smadja was just 25 years old from Ganot Hadar. He was killed in battle in central Gaza. Sergeant First Class in the Reserves Sadia Yaakov Deri was 27 and from Tel Aviv. He was killed in battle in the center of Gaza. Sergeant First Class in the Reserves Malkia Gross was just 25 years old and from Susia. He fell in battle in the south of Gaza. There are no words of ours that can assuage the pain of their parents and their families. We embrace them and those dear families who have lost their precious heroes, sons and daughters in this war for our existence. The price of war is heavy and painful. Each casualty is a world unto itself. May their memories be a blessing forever. Now the latest from COGAT in their work coordinating aid into Gaza. Yesterday, 275 humanitarian aid trucks went into Gaza, 229 trucks from Kerem Shalom, 40 via the J-Lots maritime route and 6 trucks via the Erez crossing. But only 159 aid trucks were collected, 47 trucks from Erez, 112 trucks from Kerem Shalom, and 106 by the private sector and 6 by non-UN organizations. And as we keep saying here during these briefings, the contents of 1,100 aid trucks awaits collection from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom. 6,376 pallets of aid await collection also from the J-Lots offloading area. Aid trucks also entered via Gate 96 yesterday. 4 tankers of fuel and 3 of gas essential for infrastructure in Gaza went in. In northern Gaza, 2 aid trucks full of medical equipment and 1 containing fuel went to hospitals in northern Gaza. 27 pallets were airdropped into Gaza. In terms of aid coordinations, more than 90% were approved. And today, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., the regular tactical pause took place in the Al-Ktiba neighborhood in Khan Yunis to enable the movement of humanitarian aid. So that's the end of our briefing today. Now happily take your questions, which you should put in the chat together with your news outlet. Thank you very much. First question, please.
First question is from David Isaac, JNS. What, if anything, is the Prime Minister's office doing to prepare for the possibility that the ICC will okay the prosecutor's request?
Thank you for that question, David. Yes, we're well aware of the threat caused from the ICC. We've made our comments extremely clear. We're looking for cooperation with other states together with our own legal actions. Of course, the ICC request is wholly bogus because it assumes that Israel does not have its own legal system. Our independent judiciary is, of course, well established, well respected the world over, and so this ICC issue is completely bogus. But we've made our comments on the ICC very, very clear, and we're keeping a very, very close eye on it. Next question, please. Also from David, I think.
Second question from David. Does the Prime Minister hold to his initial statement that the White House is withholding arms? And does the PM believe that the administration is gaslighting Israel on the arms issue?
Thank you for that question, David. Look, on this issue of arms and the US, look, of course, we thank President Biden, and the American people for their cooperation and their solidarity. But the Prime Minister said yesterday, and I quote, 4 months ago, there was a dramatic decrease in the munitions coming from Israel, from the US. For long weeks, we turned to our American friends and requested that the shipments be expedited. We did this time and time again. We did so at the highest level and at all levels. And I want to emphasize, this is still the Prime Minister's quote. I want to emphasize we did so behind closed doors. We received all sorts of explanation, but one thing we did not receive, the basic situation did not change. Certain items arrive sporadically, but the munitions at large remained behind, end quote. Now, David, I want to make clear this to you, and the Prime Minister is very capable, and he has expressed himself extremely clearly. These are the facts. 4 months with a diminution of armaments to defend this country. Once again, I remind you, this is a war for our very existence. We get this here in Israel, and I imagine that some of our allies around the world should understand this as well. 4 months. Now, I can go on and quote the Prime Minister, quote, in light of what I've heard over the last 24 hours, I hope and believe that this issue will be resolved in the near future. But I would like to emphasize, and I have said this to our American friends, there is one item we have, and it will always be decisive: the heroism and the determination of our fighters. And with this weapon, we will win. So I hope that answers your question comprehensively. If you want more information and to get hold of that quote, you can get it from the Prime Minister's website. In the introduction to yesterday's cabinet meeting, the Prime Minister made those comments. But we've been quite clear on that, and the Prime Minister has been extremely eloquent on these issues. These are real issues, and we've made them, and the Prime Minister's made comments that he has received assurances which we look forward to being fulfilled. America is our closest ally, has been for decades. We've been side by side, shoulder to shoulder, and we want that to continue. It's key to the existence of this country. Next question, please.
Question from Joel Polak, Breitbart News. What are we to make of the constant protests and calls for elections in the middle of a war? Yes, Israel is a vibrant democracy, but few democracies call for a change of power, unscheduled, in the middle of a war. It sends a message of instability. What is the cause of this renewed division, and how can it be managed?
Thank you very much for that question, Joel. I'm not sure I have much to add to the question that you ask. We are a vibrant democracy. Israel is going through its longest war since 1948 in the War of Independence, coming up to 9 months, this war now. 120 of our hostages still being held. Much of the north evacuated, more than 60,000 people. People in the south being evacuated. The terrible toll of soldiers that we have lost, our sons and our daughters. These are extremely extremely heavy price. Look, the Prime Minister's made clear that at this time and in all other conflicts which this country has faced, our enemies sense disunity and they use it as a time to attack us. Now, there will be a time to investigate the causes of this war, and they will be made very, very clear, an independent investigation into exactly the background to this war and the October 7th massacre. But we are facing extremely difficult times in this country. Every day is extremely difficult, both in the sacrifice which our young people are making, our soldiers, our reservists, in leaving their families and leaving their workplaces and leaving their businesses to go and fight on the front line. But we've said many times that the vultures are circling in this area and they're seeing what happens. Our enemies are emboldened at the moment. We know that, but we will win here. We will win here. And that way we will win here is because of our unity. Now, of course, protests, and they have every single right to protest. These are difficult times, and they have absolutely every single right in the world in this democracy to make their voices heard. This is an extremely difficult time, possibly the most difficult time which this country has ever faced in its 76-year history. But we will win, and we will win because the majority, the overwhelming majority of the people of this country are behind the government's effort to destroy this terrorist menace, to destroy this jihadi menace. They wish to wipe us off the face of the earth. The leaders of Iran are tweeting maybe twice a week. The Prime Minister said this yesterday, that they wish to destroy Israel. When they say it, we believe it. The overwhelming majority of people in this country understand that threat, and they want this government to fulfill on its pledge to eliminate this threat. And that's precisely what this government is doing.
Second question from Joel Polak. Could you please comment on the anti-Israel mob that targeted a synagogue in Los Angeles yesterday?
Thank you very much for that question, Joel. Absolutely shocking images of Jews being attacked, violence on the streets of Los Angeles. And where do they attack? Where do they attack? Outside a synagogue. Outside a synagogue. There is, this is Jew hatred. It's Jew hatred first and foremost. I think we should call it out for precisely what it is. There's no other reason to protest or to talk about this war, Israel's fight for its existence. Even if you are on the Palestinian side, why do you go outside a synagogue where Jews go to pray? We've seen synagogues be attacked throughout Jewish history. We know what it means. It means Jew hatred. It means Jew hatred. Now, first and foremost, it's for the US authorities to take the adequate action. We have confidence, of course, that the US will take strong and decisive action to protect Jewish communities around the world. And we, of course, are willing to offer any support necessary in that battle. We are working with Jewish communities around the world and with governments around the world to see down this oldest of hatreds known to humanity. This hatred of Jews. It's been going on more than 3,000 years, and there is a terrible spike of this Jew hatred right now. But the way to face down this Jew hatred is not to hide behind ever higher and higher walls. It is for Jewish people to wear their identity with pride, to see down the haters, to see down this hatred. We have faced many difficult times in the past. We, the Jewish people, we have faced many, many difficult times. We will overcome this one as we have overcome others in the past. Next question, please.
Question from David Clement, the News Forum. Can the Prime Minister's office explain specifically what arms have been held up from the U.S. and how this is impacting the war effort?
Thank you very much for that question, David. We've if I can point you to the comments which the Prime Minister made at his introduction to the cabinet meeting yesterday, and I referred to them earlier in the briefing. We've been quite clear about the situation. We talked about there being a dramatic decrease from 4 months ago in the munitions coming to Israel from the US. And that's been very, very serious for us. The Prime Minister has raised it in many different forums. He's behind closed doors at every different level, and he was left with no option. His responsibility is to safeguard this country. The responsibility of every leader, of every government, indeed, is the safety of the citizens of this country. The Prime Minister recognised that this was extremely problematic, and that's why he made his comments in public. We are reassured that the administration has said that these issues are being resolved. Our partnership with the US is absolutely key, not only because of the shared values, but because our enemies, Iran, are your enemies as well. They see us as the small Satan. They see the US as the big Satan. And of course, no other democracy around the world should see itself immune, because their brand of jihadism is coming for you as well. We're on the front line of this hatred, but we will see this hatred down. It will be defeated, and this country will live in safety and security in the future. We will see down these terrorists. Next question, please.
First question from Hannah Julian, the Jewish Press. South Korea has reportedly issued arrest warrants for the Prime Minister and several government ministers under the aegis of the ICC. Can you comment?
Thank you for that question, Hannah. I haven't seen those reports, so I don't want to comment on them yet. But if that is correct, that is a disappointing development. The relationship with South Korea before this war has been an extremely important one to this country. South Korea, of course, right up against a brutal dictatorship in North Korea, and when we've had relationships, when we've had very good relationships with South Korea, they've been very much on the shared values and the shared opponents that we face, because the South Koreans understand what it's like living in a difficult neighborhood, and so very much do we. So I haven't got anything to add on those comments, because I haven't seen them anywhere yet. And if I may, I'll come back to you, or the government will respond in due course, no doubt. Next question, please.
Second question from Hannah Julian. It was announced today that the Kerem Shalom crossing will be open for Gazans seeking medical treatment in Israel. Given the fact that Hamas terrorists masqueraded as civilians to carry out detailed surveillance on the Otef communities before attacking them, did Israel do this under pressure from the White House?
Again, Hannah, I haven't seen those reports, so I would be weary about answering them and responding to them. So until I see those reports, then from an official source, then I can't really comment. There is, of course, a border in southern Gaza with Egypt that has remained closed. You know, if there is a genuine desire to support Palestinians who are in need of medical equipment, in addition to the many hospitals which Israel has coordinated being established in Gaza, the Egyptians could, of course, let them in. The Jordanians could, of course, let them in. All the countries around this region could let in escaping Palestinians that wish to seek safety away from this battle against Hamas. Not one of the neighboring countries around Israel has taken any of them. Not one person, not one Palestinian has been accepted, either by Egypt or by Jordan. You know, when the Syrian civil war took place, millions, indeed millions of Syrians took refuge in different countries. Not one has been allowed, or maybe very, very, very few, in the single digits, has been allowed to seek refuge or to escape or to seek medical treatment. Very, very few in number have been able to receive medical treatment in Egypt or in Jordan or in other countries in this region. Why is that? Why are Palestinians kept cooped up? Why are they kept in Gaza when they could seek refuge in other countries and return when our war against Hamas is completed and we have finally defeated them militarily and ensured that they cannot pose a threat to us anymore? That's the question, I think, which international community should ask, and no one ever does ask that question of Egypt. No one. Next question, please.
Question from Jim Williams, Zenger International News Service, Washington, D.C. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant is in Washington for critical discussions with U.S. officials. The rising tensions between Israel and Hezbollah have heightened, and the possibility of an even bigger conflict along Israel's northern frontier arise. Given the gravity of the situation, the question arises whether the Prime Minister believes that diplomatic measures can address the threat effectively.
Thank you very much for that question, Jim. I would point you to the words which the Prime Minister made, the things that he said yesterday in the Channel 14 interview, which I referred to before. But in terms of Israel's policy, look, we are going to continue to act against Hezbollah aggression. I remind you that Israel withdrew precisely to the blue line, precisely to the blue line, to the centimetre. And the UN, the United Nations, approved the move, and the blue line is precisely where the UN asked for the border between Israel and Lebanon to me. So the question is, why does Hezbollah attack us? Why did they begin to attack us on the 8th of October last year? Why is that? There's no border dispute. They have no border dispute whatsoever. Why do they attack us? They attack us because Iran instructed them to. They are Iranian proxies. It is simply Jew hatred. That's why they attack us. They say very, very clearly that they wish to destroy this country. We know that, of course, but we're going to use all means necessary to restore security to our northern border. The state of Lebanon and the Hezbollah terrorist organization, which is operating under the guidance of Iran, they bear full responsibility for the deterioration of the security situation in the north, in violation of UN Security Council resolutions 1559 and 1701, as the Prime Minister made clear last night. One way or another, diplomatically or militarily, our northern residents will get the safety and security which they so crave on our sovereign territory, and they will be allowed to return home, one way or another. Any other questions?
Question from Yasmin Otmazgin, Kyoto News. There are reports that Israeli victims are suing UNRWA in New York. Are there more details regarding this?
Thank you, Yasmin, for that question. I haven't seen that issue yet. UNRWA have unfortunately shown themselves to be hand in hand with Hamas. Every day, the Israeli army points to evidence of that fact. Day after day after day after day, weapons caches found in UNRWA schools, weapons and terrorists hiding in UNRWA facilities. The very fact that we've got video of UNRWA staff in the stealing dead bodies of Israelis massacred on the 7th of October, UNRWA staff keeping hostages in their home, an UNRWA server, Hamas server farm directly underneath of an UNRWA headquarters with electricity being provided by UNRWA. The IDF, I think yesterday, showed pictures of key UNRWA staff at a Hamas funeral, supporting the terrorist actions of Hamas. They're basically one and the same organization. They're one of the reasons why the Hamas takeover of Gaza has been so catastrophic for Gazans. It's brought them nothing but misery. money which has been showered upon Gaza prior to this war, money and cement which should have been used to build up Gazan schools, hospitals, roads and facilities, was instead sunk into the ground to create the largest terror tunnel network, more than twice the size of the London Underground. So we know what UNRWA is. We know precisely what UNRWA is. We've called it out. UNRWA know that we've called it out, and that is why we are phasing out UNRWA in Gaza. They've done a shockingly bad job. If you listen to the facts I shared with you just before about the truckloads of aid which languish at Kerem Shalom, now at J-Lots as well. On the Gazan side, they languish there because of the inefficiency of UNRWA and other UN aid agencies. They are hopelessly inefficient, yet they've got a factory of producing stories about hunger inside Gaza instead of producing those ridiculous reports which have been shown to have been nonsense now. How about picking up the aid and distributing it to ordinary Gazans? Any other questions?
Final question from Fred Eager for Interplanetary Television. Iran and Bahrain have agreed to discuss renewing diplomatic ties after severing them in 2016 following a recent visit to Tehran. How does Israel see the prospects of one of the Abraham Accord signatories, Bahrain, renewing its diplomatic ties with Iran?
Thank you for that question, Fred. That sounds like an issue for Bahrain, and we would hope that Bahrain, as a country which has agreed to the Abraham Accords to have normalized relations with this country, would tell Iran that their effort to destroy this country, to wipe this country off the face of the earth, to engage in its seven-front war against this country will fail, and to desist, and also to call free and fair elections in Iran so that the regime in Iran will no longer subjugate its own people, both in terms of women's rights and all sorts of basic democratic freedoms which don't exist in the Islamo-fascist theocracy of Iran. Any other questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Okay, my friends, that's the end of our briefing here today. The next briefing will be tomorrow at the same time. In the meantime, please do stay safe, and thank you for joining us. Bye-bye now.